In this class, we're going to start to have a look at how we can summarize data or summarize a data set. And we're going to start by looking at the kind of summaries that can be obtained by using the two lowest levels of measurement, namely nominal and ordinal. So in other words, we'll see what we can do by using just the values of the variable that we're observing and if it exists, the natural order of such values. But first of all, let's have a look at why we want to summarize. This may look like a basic idea, but I just want to emphasize why we do it. First of all, we want to summarize to make it fit our brains. What we're trying to do is we're trying to condense a whole big data set that may leave us totally befuddled into a few easy and simple numbers that we can understand. The second thing is that once we have done this summarization, we can use it in order to compare, say, different variables, different groups, different populations, or things like this. It's a lot easier to do it on summaries than on individual ones. Also, once we have done that, we can start giving answers or working towards the answers to important questions, such as how much is things like the average or the variability or the height or whatever it is that we're looking at in a population. The other thing is we can try to ask questions of the type, is it true that, which is a basic kind of research question, and so we'll try to address those questions by comparing on or analyzing these summaries. And also sometimes we're going to look at relationships between or among variables, and again those are going to be done by looking at these summaries. So let's start by summarizing the simplest kind of variables, the nominal variables. So let's say we have a nominal data set. What does that mean? It means that its values are just names. So there are things like A, B, C, where A, B, C, and just denote three possible options, which don't come into any natural order. So the alphabetical order that we're using has nothing to do with the information contained in the variable. So because we're dealing with just names, we cannot do any math. We cannot really add A and B or do any other kinds of operations with it. So just about the only things that we can do are the following very simple summaries. What we can do is we can compute the frequency, that is how many times each value occurred. This is sometimes denoted by the letter X, which of course you're fairly familiar with in mathematics. So for instance, in this case, the value of X, the value of the frequency for A would be 16, for B would be 20, and for C would be 14. In other words, A was observed 16 times, B 20 times, C 14 times. That means that altogether we made 50 observations. That is the total sample size, which, as it's customary, we denote with the letter N. The other thing that we can do is actually compute proportions. So what proportion of the total sample was made up of A's? So by doing that, we divide the number X, or the 16 in this case, by the total sample size N, and we can come up with these other numbers. So 16 divided by 50 gives us 0.32, 20 divided by 50 gives us 0.4, 14 divided by 50 gives us 0.28. And if you're getting tired of all these numbers, don't panic, don't worry. We are going to spend very little time on that. Now notice, however, that all these numbers are decimal numbers between 0 and 1. In fact, they add up to 1. And so although they're easy to compute, they're not very easy to think about. We're not very good at working with decimal numbers. So what some people do often is they work with percentages, which of course means that what we're going to do is we're going to look at those proportions and multiply each of them by 100. That simply makes for bigger numbers, which are a lot easier to understand. So A occurred 32% of the times, B occurred 40% of the times, and C occurred 28% of the times. And there is only one more thing we can do with these nominal values, namely look at the mode, the most frequent of these numbers. So in this case, if you look at it, notice that the most frequent value was B, which happened 20 times, more than both A and C, or each of A and C. And for this reason, we're going to call B the mode of this data set. Now, this is all we can do with nominal data. So it's time to move on to ordinal data and try to figure out what we can do with them, how we can summarize by taking advantage of the order that they have.